Asylum Inc. presents Survival Instincts. Twisted moose terrorizes hunters. The forest breathed wrong that morning, exhaling mist that tasted of copper and decay. Tom Briggs would later tell the authorities, those few who bothered to listen before the screaming started, that the silence had been the first sign. No birdsong, no rustle of small creatures through the undergrowth, just the wet whisper of fog threading between the black spruces like diseased fingers. The hunting party had entered Blackwood Preserve at dawn, their fluorescent vests garish wounds against the grey-green flesh of the wilderness. By noon, when they found the moose, two men were already walking differently. Jerky, puppet-like. Their companions attributed it to excitement, to the anticipation of the kill. They were wrong. The bull moose stood in a clearing where no clearing should have been. Its massive frame silhouetted against the peculiar light that filtered through branches grown too thick, too close together. But something fundamental had shifted in the architecture of its being. The creature's spine curved backward in an impossible arch, vertebrae grinding against each other with sounds like breaking teeth. Its head hung inverted, antlers scraping furrows in the earth as it moved with the herky-jerky gait of a marionette guided by palsied hands. "Jesus Christ," whispered Eddie Marchetti, raising his rifle with hands that trembled not from cold, but from some deeper recognition. The kind of ancestral terror that lives in the brainstem, older than thought, older than prayer. The moose turned toward them. Its eyes had been sewn shut with what appeared to be sinew, crude stitches weeping a substance too dark to be blood. Its mouth moved in patterns that suggested speech, though only a wet clicking emerged, the sound of a tongue too large for its skull. Along its flanks, Eddie could see other stitching, long, deliberate seams where different pelts had been joined, creating a patchwork creature that wore death like an ill-fitting suit. Tom Briggs later described the sensation as watching something try to remember how to be alive. The moose's movements possessed a mechanical quality, each step calculated and wrong, as if some intelligence were learning to operate unfamiliar machinery. Its legs moved in sequences that defied biology, left rear, right front, right rear, a gait that no living thing had ever possessed. But it was the sounds from within that drove Eddie Marchetti to his knees, retching into the frost-blackened ferns. From deep inside the creature's chest cavity came a chorus of smaller voices, chittering, squeaking, the death cries of countless smaller creatures. Squirrels, perhaps, mice, birds, all of them moving, all of them calling out in tiny, strangled voices from within their composite tomb. The thing that wore the moose began to approach. It was then that Tom Briggs noticed his companions. Eddie knelt in the undergrowth, but his shoulders moved wrong, too sharp, too angular, as if extra bones had sprouted beneath his hunting jacket. When Eddie turned to look at him, his neck rotated too far, nearly 180 degrees, and Tom could see the fine black thread that had begun to emerge from Eddie's ears, nose, and mouth. "The old woman warned us," Eddie said, his voice a harmony of frequencies that made Tom's teeth ache. "Grandmother Ashki. She told us about the bone walker, the one who makes suits from the forest's children." The hunting party had been 5 men. Now Tom could account for only fragments, an arm here, reaching from behind a tree with fingers that bent backward at each knuckle. A face there, pressed against the bark of a birch, its features rearranged in an expression of terminal surprise. The forest had become a workshop, and they were the raw materials. The moose thing spoke then, its voice emerging from multiple throats, some human, some animal, all wrong. "We fit together," it said, the words accompanied by the sound of ripping fabric, though what tore was not cloth, but flesh. All the forest's children, sewn into one beautiful skin. Tom Briggs ran. Through brambles that clutched with fingers that were too articulated to be thorns, past trees whose bark pulsed with circulatory rhythms, over ground that shifted and breathed beneath his boots. Behind him he could hear the pursuit, not the thundering charge of a creature that size should make, but the careful, measured steps of something learning to walk, accompanied by the wet sounds of constant reconstruction. He would later tell the authorities about the video camera they found at the scene, its memory card intact despite being partially digested. The footage, time-stamped October 13th, 2024, showed the hunting party's final moments in stark digital clarity, but more disturbing were the files buried deeper in the camera's memory, footage from 1992 showing a similar scene. Different hunters. Same impossible creature. Same forest where death had learned to stitch itself back together. The final frames showed something that would haunt the viewing committee for months afterward. Tom Briggs himself, fleeing through the woods, but already beginning to change. The black thread emerging from his ears, his gait becoming irregular, puppet-like. His shadow on the forest floor showing not one figure, but many, all stitched together at the edges. Post-incident notes. Subject Tom Briggs was recovered 3 days later, catatonic, found seated upright against a tree approximately 40 miles from the incident site. Medical examination revealed extensive internal scarring consistent with crude surgical modification, though no external wounds were present. Subject claims no memory of the intervening 72 hours, but has developed a pronounced walking gait, matching the movement pattern described in historical accounts of the bone walker phenomenon. Blackwood Preserve remains under indefinite closure. Satellite imagery shows the affected area expanding at a rate of approximately 1 acre per week. Local indigenous elder Mary Ashkey has requested immediate consultation regarding traditional containment methods, citing tribal knowledge of similar entities dating back 4 centuries. All personnel involved in this investigation are advised to monitor themselves for symptoms of autonomous nervous system disruption, particularly irregular movement patterns, unexplained scarring, or the sensation of wearing someone else's body. The forest is patient. The forest is learning. Do not walk alone after dark. If you found yourself stirred, unsettled, or just a bit more wary of shadows, consider offering a like to feed the entity that powers these tales. And should you subscribe, you may yet survive to hear the next whisper from the void.